Alright guys, welcome to the next episode for our driver career mode here on F123. This week we're going to be coming up to Singapore, the new layout for Singapore. And I actually spent a lot more time in time trial than I wanted to, pretty much, for this, as Haas and Alpine surpass us on the upgrades. So we're back towards the bottom of the list for our progress. I'm still feeling under the weather, as if you guys heard me in the last episode. But yeah, so we're feeling pretty good. We're at the back end of the season, and we're coming off a great 10-point finish as of Italy, finishing there in P5, trying to defend against the Ferrari and Aston Martin, as we passed Lance Stroll for points. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and go into practice. I went through maybe 3 setups, try to zero in on what I wanted to do for a setup for this track, especially with the Sector 3, like 4 corners taken out of Sector 3. So a lot of adjusting had to deal with that part of the track. And coming out of those corners a lot better than I was doing, so I'm hoping that we do better. As we have rain in practice 3, so we probably won't be participating in practice 3, as we don't have any weather coming for the race. So we might be able to get some hot laps in on another set of soft tires before qualifying and see what we can do. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into practice. We'll see you for qualifying.
Excellent lap. We're all very, very pleased with that one. Nice work. Come on, I'll see you back in the pits.
We're all ready for tomorrow's race, but before we begin, let's have a quick look at those who'll be fronting the grid. Johnson, Norris and George Russell. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
Alright, so I think this is the first time we start on pole. I know we started on the front row before because of some penalties. I don't remember if that was a pole start or not. But practice didn't go so well. I wasn't feeling very comfortable on the soft tires. It was earlier in the day, so it was a lot hotter, so I don't know. The hards and mediums felt a lot better to control. And then once we started getting into qualifying, you saw how many runs we did for Q1, and I was feeling pretty comfortable. And then we did end up going to Q2, and then I believe it was one set run for Q2 with a little bit of tweak from our setup. We had to do some differential stuff, and out of all the stuff that we were able to change, and that really helped us out. We really tried to push the car to its limits here on the last 2 runs in Q3, and coming onto this last lap, there was no improvement. As you guys can see, I basically stayed out to see if there was any improvement, but everybody was coming back in from their hot laps because qualifying had just ended. So it's gonna be a Q1 start for us. I do think there was a little bit of a help from that engine upgrade that came in, if you guys did see from the intro. But we're feeling really confident. Hopefully the race itself is a similar story, because there is no rain projected to come in for the race this weekend, as we have that new layout. So that second straight towards the end, I've been having issues getting that braking point right before the last two corners, so hopefully that won't come back and bite us in the ass on our P1 start. So we're gonna have to wait and see here, as we're gonna go ahead and get right to the main event.
Marina Bay hosted a Grand Prix that briefly ran in the 60s and 70s, but the Garden City re-entered the calendar for good in 2008. We missed it for a couple of years, but it was great to come back to the Singapore Grand Prix. Things have changed slightly around the Marina Bay circuit for 2023. 4 corners have been taken out, the lap length reduced to just over 3 miles. That might be a welcome relief to the drivers, might be even more of a relief for their brakes. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Johnson lines up on pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Russell, Verstappen, Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Perez, Leclerc, Ocon, Gasly, Oscar Piastri, Stroll, Joe, Bottas, Sargent, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, Magnussen, Sainz, and Nick de Vries. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? Natalie Pinkham, a lot of talented drivers out on the track today, but what will stand out for you?
Formula One never sits still. That's something that is so compelling about it as a fan. I love the fact that they're always pushing boundaries, always asking questions, always challenging how we can do better and create more performance, more entertainment, more technological advances. And we take the viewers with us on that journey, and I think that's why it's so thrilling.
Alright, so we do get a P1 start, and the alternate strategy of medium, soft, hard. We're going to go ahead with the medium to hard. Can be a little bit overcast, so the ends of the medium tires will last a little bit longer, so we may be able to stretch that out to lap 12 and see where it goes. So I was going to drop our fuel load just a little bit for safety cars, and we'll get right onto the track. Alright, so here we are, first place, getting into our grid slot. I don't know, a little bit more wear and tear to those back tires so we can have a good launch.
Okay, incredible parking there, nice one. That's going to give you the edge if you can get a good launch as the race starts.
Like we said, good launch.
Keep an eye on the lights, the start sequence will begin as soon as the grid is formed. Be ready with the clutch.
In first place, we have to wait the longest, but as we transition over to our 5 red lights, we're starting in P1, Norris, Russell, Verstappen, the rest of the top 2 rows. As we move on the inside, Norris makes a move as Russell moves up to P4. So it's the McLaren and the Mercedes. The Mercedes is on the inside of the curb a little bit, as we're now side by side with Lando Norris. Coming through these next few corners, we have a better launch here, as I believe we're on the softer set of compound tires, but I do believe Lando Norris is on the mediums as well, as we're currently leading. We had a little bit of a tussle there with Lando Norris off the start for the lead, but we did manage to get through, and we're basically setting the pace. We're taking it easy and settling in, as this right-hander will definitely prove difficult for us later on in the race, as when it comes to pace and consistency, as our gap is now built up about 0.8 seconds, almost just under a second now, as we're coming over to the bridge section here in Sector 2. This long left-hander and then the short right-hander chicane, and then right before the bridge, and then this left-hander hairpin. The most difficult part of this track for me, as Russell gets a good launch out of that hairpin, and Norris not so much. As we're coming through these last few sections, And we're now sector 3 with a new layout, so the previous corner, so we're long left-hander, and we're going to continue straight on to the last 3 corners of the track instead of making that right hand and narrow left-hand turn. If you guys remember, I believe in F122, as we're rounding up the end of the first lap, P1 with about exactly a half second gap between us and Lando Norris in the McLaren. And next piece of action we have lap 4. George Russell made the move on Lando Norris a couple laps ago, and he's just making a move on us on the start of lap 5 on the inside. And he has a harder set of compound tires, I believe. I didn't quite see it there. We should be able to get another shot and see what compound tires he's on, as we have DRS, so we're able to try to keep up with him, even though that gap is now over 0.6 of a second. Moving on to lap 8 now. Taking a lot of curve from that, and it's Lando Norris's turn. 4 laps, and it's already 3.9 seconds between P2 and P1 of George Russell. There's a little bit of tire contact there. We had a little bit of wheel spin. Max Verstappen almost capitalizing on us, coming in contact with us out of that corner onto that straight. So Alonso and Perez in their own kind of fight there, back there, as Lando Norris now up in P2, and we still have DRS as we're lap 9, but on the same lap, we're going to be swapping over to onboard with Esteban Ocon. That's later in this lap, sector 2. He ends up being told, you have some engine issues, you need to retire the car. And at this point, they let us know, like, okay, there's engine issues, we are in Singapore, there's literally nowhere to pull off without safety car. So we were going to be coming in at this lap, we're going to be coming in for an early pit stop. This is about the point that they told me that it's like, hey, right before that long straight there in sector 3, like he's out, and I knew it's like, okay, I need to pit now, otherwise it's too late. And sure enough, as I come into the pits, they pull out the safety car, and you can see the Mercedes right there of Hamilton coming in behind me. So Russell, Norris, Verstappen, Alonso, Perez all ahead of me as we come into the pits for our set of hard tires. We're going to be running these set of hard tires a little bit longer than we wanted. And there's trouble on the back, the left tire. As you can see, the pit crew is kind of glitched out there. I don't know if it's because of my mods or stuff was running in the background at the time of recording in the replay. As you can see, some position changes there as more people are coming into the pits. Esteban Ocon out of this race, as we're going to be in P6 after that early safety car. About, not really early, but halfway. But we're coming out, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm in the lead. But I checked, and I was not. I was sitting P6, so we almost come in contact with a safety car. And end of lap 11 now. We're coming in behind Alonso, and we're basically ready for this restart and on these hard tires. So you can see Hamilton, Perez, Leclerc, Gasly, and Zhou ran at the rest of the top 10. Piastri, the other rookie, had a hell of a performance last race. As we're on the restart, Alonso gets a pretty good gap on us on the restart, but we're coming in late on the brakes. We have a little bit more grip, or a little bit more control on these tires than everybody else. So we did come in right as right before that yellow flag came out. So we are 1 lap more on these hard tires. A little bit of wheel spin there as we come out onto the straight here. The first DRS zone, we won't get that till 2 laps. As we're basically trying to fight for a position here for P4. As we're coming through this early sector 2, and at this point on these hard tires, we had to manage these tires and make sure we hit our points very well, because Singapore, a very difficult track. I had a lot of trouble on the controller. My hand started getting sore around here because I'm trying to close that gap, and we have Sergio Perez trying to close in on us as well. But we do get some good momentum. We're down to 0.2 of a second back against Alonso. We're side by side momentarily there in the corners. We're still trying to get enough room between us and him, and that way we can make a move. He's now on second back between Max Verstappen and himself, as we're coming out of that second sector 3 long straight. A little bit of snap there as we take too much of the inside of the corner. And we're looking to make a move. And we switch back to the outside. He was on the inside. We basically forced his hand and moved on the inside, so we had the outside line. So easy position up in the P4, lap 13 of 21. As we have Alonso in our mirrors. And at this point, we have DRS, but we are out of DRS range for Max Verstappen. Lap 16, we're finally within a second. We're about 6 to 7 tenths as we go wide on that left-hander hairpin like I was talking about earlier. We have DRS, we're in range. But as we saw earlier in the season in Spa, Max Verstappen having hell of a time with the pace of the car. You can see as we did go over track limits there on that right-hander. That was one of our first warnings here on lap 16 as we coming through these last 3 corners. A little bit of a snap of oversteer, a little bit of contact on the wall. That's basically what's going to break our pace. And then, like I was saying about my hands cramping up, that gap enlarged. And then we're finally able to get back on lap 19, back under half a second, 4/10 of a second at least. The same area here, Sector 3, and we're looking to get a decent outing onto the main straight as saw a little bit of wheel spin there. And we're basically using the track as best as we can. We're going to be ending up braking late here into these first few turns. Taking a little bit too much of the curve that I wanted to, and I thought I was going to lose traction here. There's a little bit of time there on that 3rd corner. But we do keep that gap a little bit more, and we have DRS. So we are in DRS, and we are in the toe of Max Verstappen to try to make a move. Here on lap 20 of 21, we have 2 this lap and 1 more lap to go next lap. And we're basically fighting for P3. We're fighting for that last podium spot at the very end of this race. So you can see a little bit more wheel spin there. And unfortunately, with that tree in the way, we do make a dive bomb on the inside of Max Verstappen there on that hard right-hander. Side by side through the next turn. And we do get a better launch through Sector 2 as we cut him off here, taking a little bit more curve, and he backs off. And we basically watch him in our mirrors, watch the gap as we come through the bridge section and start of Sector 3. You make sure to get a good launch, and even though Max Verstappen has a better launch than us through that sector, we do manage to fend him off for the end of the race, finishing in P3.
Well done, mate. Well done. That's a great finish. You've really stepped up and achieved what we asked you to do today, so good job.
What a great race it's been then. Another classic Singapore Grand Prix. And they've held on to take the checkered flag here today. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I want to know if that was as easy as it looked. An absolute masterclass today.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take the top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes. Let's have a look then at the drivers' standings. That's a positive result for George Russell, who further solidifies his position at the top of the standings. So then, Natalie Pinkham, who would you rank as your driver of the day?
Well, there's no question in my mind. It has to go to George Russell. What a performance. He's got every right to be proud of what he accomplished out there today.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
All right, so all in all, that was a very tough race. Myself and George Russell swapping grid slots from the beginning of the race. He started in P3, I started in P1. And we had a fight against Fernando Alonso there for a little bit after the yellow flag restart. I did have a feeling, I said it earlier, I did have a feeling with the DNF of Esteban Ocon. This track doesn't have many places that have runoffs, so I took the gamble, I went into the pits, and in the long run it didn't really help out because we came back out in P5 on the restart. But yeah, very eventful race, I had to, moments I was catching up, I had a lot of stress in my hands trying to force my way up, trying to close the gap as much as possible to Max Verstappen. And that's where that tail end of the race, where my gap started getting bigger and bigger, I had to adjust my hands because my fingers started cramping up, because this is the hardest I've ever driven so far this season. And the way the car was, it doesn't want to perform around those corners. Like, if you guys remember back in Baku, the sprint race and the long race, that long straight, our car loved the long straight, but it hated the turns, and it was a similar situation even with the upgrades that we have here. But P3 finish for myself. Logan Sargent did get up to P15, but he didn't really do so well. And if you guys remember, the driver standings were ahead of Lance Stroll still, and then we bumped up ahead of Haas. So yeah, so our teammate Logan Sargent finishing P15 right where he started. So that's basically going to round out the end of our Singapore Grand Prix, and we'll see you guys in the next episode for Japan.